listen to, well, you don't seem to get the point. You're coming over to my business. Right? So you can't commit felonies and then whine and complain. Just like Mace told you. What did Mace tell you? You can't play with people's lives and then dictate how they respond. That's not how life works.
Down you go, creepy.
Leave me, I'm not. Like they can't see. Like I said, legal names have been turned in like years ago. Said they wouldn't do anything, said they wouldn't. Right? That's illegal. You have to do your job. So, like I said, that's what y'all did. That's the reason.
Prepare to be blown.
Because I had to do your job. So maybe, so that's what y'all do. You're just supposed to sit here and put up with the hell. Like I said, somebody do a crazy to me. If somebody come to me, you know what I'm saying? So like I said, now that it's real, right? Now that it's on, right? Let's see what y'all really do, any of you in the Let's see if y'all really move and do it. Instead of all this talking. When you got people, and it's clear they trying to set me up with what they trying to do every day. I don't have room for that in my life. I'm here trying to live my life, and y'all got folks stalking me across state lines, committing felonies, committing collusion, conspiracy to commit exactly what towards me. And you think I'm a player? So, like I said, I'm not a guy who back raised a real man. I'll tell you what it is. And I've been big and strong, and I'm the tough guy. And I'm not afraid of your system. I'm not afraid of any of you. We stand up for them. We make sure that human beings are treated right. And we continue to stand up firm. So, like I said, there's no evidence. And an ethic thing that's been over a certain way, right? When I've been nothing but diplomatic, I've been nothing but nice. And these people are sending agents. Nothing but nice. Go suck a dick, bitch. Fuck you. That's nothing but nice. Potentially sleep deprived me. I'm not having any sleep. And then, right, you try to take advantage of a weakness and think I'm going to continue to just sit here and
damn it gets results.
See, folks don't have a choice but to defend themselves individually. To stand up to individually. Or not to mention that you're getting numbers and you're getting towards people. You're getting literally, they're using corrupt informants and then acting like because they use the corrupt informants and the corrupt officials that people can't, defend themselves and stand up to them. They're not leaving a choice. If you have the issue, just be a woman or a man. Keep it real. Keep it G tough. Keep it real. Keep it G tough. Whoever God's plan is, what God's plan is. That's the way to do this right. That's why everything was so serious with Christina, and I told you what to do, and you didn't listen. It was mistake. It'll mess up everything because of what these people do. But the fact is, because these people can't. You know what I mean? Like I said, you sit there, and that's what you do. You edit footage, you send footage, you do this and that, and this person and that. They have the same. I know what I can do and what I can't. I know what I can say and what I can't. So keep that's it. Like, you're sitting here trying to do what you should not be trying to do. If you want to challenge me, like I said, I'll be challenging you. But anybody
You say collateral damage, I say crowd control.
you can take what you do. It's time to get it over. You know, you mean. See, you're not getting it. The energy is different now. We're in a whole different realm. You understand? So, like I said, now, anybody
I heard that one.
yeah, we 100% would get down right in it.
Who is going to clean that up?
Jesus.
But that... Oh, Oh yes, well done. Extra credit for you.
Did he stop again? Okay, Mac, he's mad. I mean, I've done it so many times.
Energy mine set.
I don't know what any of them.
15. This is starting to get fun.
Sorry. I'm gonna check my UPS account right now. Trying to read and stream at the same time. And there it is. This one's called
Well done, Jermaine. You're making Jermaine look totally better.
Chancel. Great. What's up, you crusty bird?
No, man, driving home. This shit, I can't get rid of it.
Sweet. Let's go
You got the
hunting.
spare in the palm of your hand?
No, I didn't curse anyone out yet. No, I'm not me right now. We make this right. Here we go. I've been driving cocksucker.
And no, Ralph, you're not driving.
Yes, yeah. Maybe it's just not shit.
I don't know, like five.
I
Like shit,
yeah. Very much, yeah. That's what it is.
Someone said they couldn't get any elsewhere.
You want a medal?
This is. It's gonna go.
I said, oh my god, I'm tired, ants.
Guys are on a video. Let's cook up this cheese pizza in the oven here. I think I've had these cheese pizzas once before. They're pretty good. I see it comes like this, and then all that cheese just melts. Now I don't got a pan.
USMCA
Yeah.
is not getting a deal done between Canada and the US. We're waiting to see if there is this meeting between Prime Minister Mark Carney and Donald Trump. The reality in the interim is that you've still got sectors in Canada that are navigating things like jacked up levies. Steel would be a great example of that. Marty Warren is with the United Steelworkers Union, the National Director for Canada. Marty, thanks for your time. I saw in your statement, and it rhymes some of the headlines we've seen about in the absence of a deal, no deal could be better than a bad deal. How are you viewing where we stand right now here in early August?
Well, no deal is better than a bad deal, but a deal has got to be made. The uncertainty is really creating havoc in a lot of our big sectors. And by saying that, I believe that if we cannot get a fair deal soon, we have to take stronger steps and ramp up the pushback to kind of make the water boil. We've got to believe in Canada. What Canada does on this trade deal will matter what happens with the Kuzma deal and who we are in the future. And I just don't think taking a submissive position and trying to stroke his ego, rub his belly, and tickle his feet is going to work. So I'm patient. I hope the government can pull this off. but I believe it's going to take a pushback from all provinces, Canada as a whole, to push back and strike a fair deal.
Does that pushback?
So how we doing, Olivia? Oh yeah. So what do you think about her little inner circle?
This site is considered cursed. Reports of paranormal phenomena go back centuries. If that is due to the presence of the Sentinel artifact, proceed with caution.
Ooh, who's trying to gain favor?
That's right, lads. Put your backs into it. Our quarry lies beyond the so-called door to nowhere, which I'll admit does sound very strange. As sure as my name's Sir Archibald Fortherton Smythe, a shiny headley to the lucky blighter who finds that door first.
That transmission emanated from the obscure Altilium. I believe the amulet somehow channeled an echo from the past.
She's not even royalty yet, though. Does she really think she can accomplish that?
Shuffled right into that one.
Yeah, it also requires approval from the king.
Double points.
Do you think I should banish her or allow her to prosper?
Is this box nailed down? 'Cause I have an idea. This isn't luck, this is destiny. Just look at this thing.
Bonus points.
Yeah, what do you think about that Anthony guy? Whatever happened to him, huh?
Semtex primed. One, two things the hard way.
Surprised by his determination. Despite everything, he refused to give up. His devotion was almost admirable.
Yeah, Madison did side with that fool. Remember what she did?
Didn't she spit at his feet and then suddenly change her mind and offer to ally with him? It seemed strange at the time, like she was testing the waters or playing politics. But then again, I suppose I
Something that
underestimated her
happened, I
even
guess,
further.
last night, and everybody is very unhappy about this. They're angry. They're upset. This is something that's been going on now for years on OnlyFans. Girls do this all the time, but I think now, like little. Take a step back and just explain what's happening, right? But it's fucking disgusting. Let me go ahead and explain what's happening. So, and let me pull it up. Little Tay, there it is. Little Tay, bro. Oh my. Oh God, bro. Like, man, what the fuck? All right. So already, yes, Jesus, man. And so anyway, little Tay. I don't even remember how this girl got famous. Is it from like what is this? Like fucking. I'm trying to think. What's it called? Mr. Doctor, not Mr. Phil. Doctor Phil. Who's it from Doctor Phil? I don't remember at all. From TikToks, I have no idea. And so anyway, a rap song, I see. So anyway, little Tay, let me see if I can find it. Jesus Christ. I don't even know what this is going to be. I'm just going to block this person. I don't even know what the message there. Oh my God. I can't even look at any of these because of these weird fucking comments. Holy shit. Well, anyway, I guess let's go ahead and just talk about this right now and not even, we don't need to get into a bunch of other stuff. So basically, don't scroll. Yeah, it's like I don't even want to scroll through this. So little Tay announced that she made $1 million on her OnlyFans within 3 hours. And you can see this right here. And this is her tweet here. I guess I can look it up and find it myself. Little Tay be poppin'. Jesus Christ. Okay. Where is it? I want to make sure I got it here. It's a fan account. Okay, all right. So is this it? Yeah, this is it. Youngest girl on OnlyFans, freshly 18. So anyway, this is her tweet. She posted this yesterday, and this is actually, well, this is originally what she said. She said, "Freshly 18. Please don't tell my mom. My 18th birthday exclusive shot at 12:01 a.m. Only available for 24 hours. Come and see me in my birthday suits. Replying to all DMs." So that's right, guys. Oh boy, don't tell my mom. Yeah, I'd rather tell. Oh, I can't. I mean, honestly, this isn't illegal. It's just weird, right? I was gonna say I'd rather tell the FBI, but the fact is that it's not really. It's not illegal. Nobody's breaking the law here. It's just. I don't think Jesus is looking at this and saying this is exactly what this is. This is how I drew it up, right? And so anyway, FBI should investigate when the photos were uploaded. They probably weren't. No, there's no reason to do that. Anyway, so I mean, maybe, right? But I don't really think so. So she made $1 million. I'm not even kidding. Look, she posted it right here. $1 million in money and subscriptions and everything to OnlyFans. And her messages. This is the crazy thing. Simps be crazy. You want to talk about being overpowered? Like these simps will just message these girls. Like, and I don't even understand this. It's $20. Yeah, I guess so. And so anyway, these guys are sending this girl messages. And what I think is kind of funny is that the images aren't really being posted. So I mean, like, oh God, can I even say this?
Max Armor.
Hey, that's my favorite thing to do, right? So anyway, holy fucking shit.
3 long Napoleon days and damn totally lost. Some say life is about the
Oh.
journey is on the destination. To which I report, let us get the tractor. Stand before Christmas. Onward! Through the door to nowhere!
Oh.
Anytime is the right time for a knock. Those things swarm. We got real problems. I'm so done with target discrimination.
So she made $1 million. $1 million in 3 hours on OnlyFans. And keep in mind, that is so wrong. How much do you want to bet? Probably stuff. Yeah, they only got random ball. That's how it is. And yeah,
Oh, I'm gonna wreck some shit.
Also on top of that, let's say you do a LLC or in Australia it's 7.5. About that, right? Like, just think about that. Like, I mean, we can go back and forth about this, but it's like 40 to 50%, depending on how well, but there's additional taxes for people who are self-employed. And that's just it. Well, about 41%, that's a little bit of a scam. You're right, it should be higher. Higher tax rates. I think tax rates for
Location. Now that's the summer cut.
Insta-kill.
That makes things a little easier.
Bonus points.
There's a video Little Tay released on Twitter describing pre-orders since 2018. Oh no. Claims to have made over $1 million in 3 hours after making an OnlyFans page on her birthday. She now says she has over 100,000 subscribers. She has over 100,000 subscribers on the platform. Oh my god. Okay, well let's go ahead.
So I was speaking with a friend today, and I said to her that the new poor, or the new poverty in Canada is the working class. Yeah.
Now, there is a massive cost of living crisis in Canada, and it's causing a lot of people to consider leaving Canada altogether. We're talking massive increases on grocery prices, massive increases on housing, insanely high taxes. We're going to talk about all of that in today's video, so buckle up. This one's going to be a doozy.
And you like ribeye? I like ribeye.
In Canada, that would be the price of a down payment on a house.
Oh, he's not lying if you've ever shopped at Costco, and I've done a few videos on Costco's meat prices, particularly red meat, and how absurdly high it is here in Canada. That would be literally like a down payment on a cottage in Ontario. What the heck?
People with actual resources and money are leaving Canada. This is no longer just a rumor. This is not something that's just being circulated on social media for likes. It's actually happening. I was reading a Financial Post article out there that actually stated numbers, not just a hearsay. It stated numbers of how many Canadians were leaving Canada in the past 4 to 5 years. And guess what? In 2024, last year, around 100,000 Canadians left Canada permanently for good. In 2025, 25, it's been almost 27,000 so far. Now, what people are not realizing are the implications of these numbers, is the fact that it's obviously people with resources and money that are leaving Canada. They're leaving with their resources. They're leaving with opportunities for creating businesses. People could have been employed if these people stayed here and kept where it's going.
A lot of people might say, good, let the wealthy people leave and have more money here in Canada for the less fortunate. But you have to think about it like this. Who's actually leaving Canada? Are the big corporations leaving Canada, like the oligarchies? Loblaws is staying. They have a monopoly on the grocery industry. Telecommunications companies are going to stay, Rogers and Bell. The banking industry is obviously going to stay the same because it's the banking industry, unless banks collapse. So the people who are actually leaving are people who have successful small businesses but are losing profits year over year, maybe even potentially going into debt. People who have a lot of money that they can spend in the economy to actually help small businesses. So it means you have all of this potential GDP fleeing your country, and they're going to be spending their money elsewhere, retiring elsewhere, and all that money that they're going to be using in another country should have been money being spent here in Canada.
I need someone to explain this to me. I went to Costco today, and I was just shopping, looking around. I was going to pick up some chocolate chips to make some cookies. When in the hell did they become $36.99 for 2 kilograms? $36.99. They were $16.99 2 years ago, and they bumped up to like $26.99, which I thought was unreal and way too much. $36.99. How the hell are we supposed to make chocolate chip cookies? What is it?
That is really curious, of course. Over that time period, what the heck? I mean, it's not surprising. I shop at Costco, and I'm always blown away. That's why I always love to film when I'm in Costco, because I can't believe some of the prices on things at Costco.
So I'm downtown Toronto, and I'm here for a concert, and on the tickets, they never listed anything about limited parking or anything like that. I mean, Toronto is an absolute disaster. They're not
Security chief, the new arrivals. Could have used you sooner, but welcome just the same. I'm in the mansion, command center. Injured, attacked. Most everyone else is, well, you've got eyes. Look, we need to get this situation under control ASAP. Be ready for anything. Search the area. We've got 3 Janus Science personnel missing. Their knowledge is critical to mission success, and we take care of our own.
I didn't include everything, but I included
Manifesting. Ray gun. Oh, auto shotty with incendiary ammo.
Prices are high everywhere. But I've noticed
Hell yeah. I sure as shit know what to do with you.
I feel like in the north we have a higher cost because of the transportation. But still, I just think the high price of fruit and vegetables, and I
Keep pushing. We need to find out what caused all this, even if it turns out it was us.
no one's buying these. So much must be going to waste when it could be going to like food banks, treatment centers, recovery houses, women's shelters. It could be going to school programs. But it's not adequate nutrition. It's like what bread into a weird little bologna sandwich and a cheese box that contains like 90% of it's just sugar water. And a lot of these foods are like packaged and they're
they're sliced or they're shredded. And obviously you can save a little bit of money buying in bulk. You're paying for convenience. When I see things like this iced tea for $20, I'm like, are you kidding me? Just wait till I get to the coffee aisle. It's insane. It's almost like $1 per serving of Keurig coffee. And these noodles being $5 a box is just wild. So much of this stuff just doesn't get bought and just goes to waste. And that's the thing about these corporations. They have the money. They would rather charge us an arm and a leg than to see anyone less fortunate get any sort of deal or value. Like $32 for a bag of coffee. It's out of control. And then they put a sale price, $26.99. Like we're supposed to be happy. Ain't no one buying Edwards coffee for $20 a tin.
Yeah, that's something that I haven't delved too much into is the prices of coffee at grocery stores in Canada. It's kind of shocking, to say the least. It's almost better to just get the $1 coffees at McDonald's every day than actually just to make your own coffee at home. That's how bad the prices of coffee are getting now. It's like $30, I feel like, is the starting point right now for prices for coffee in the massive tin jugs. But leave your thoughts down below about the Canadian coffee prices, because they're high, very high. In fact, the people putting the price on the coffee must be high.
Fam, you have to be delusional or dumb thinking you're going to live any type of lavish life or build any type of generational wealth in a country like Canada, where they want us all dumpster diving. If you're not hitting the chop or a telly, listen, just get out of this country, brother. That's why the most educated Canadians are choosing to leave. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, 27,000 citizens and permanent residents have left the country. You know how many people that is? That's 100,000 a year. And remember, that's the people that can afford to leave. Some people can't leave. Some people have families, careers, traps, and telly things they have to look after. And where are people going? Countries like Italy, Spain, Mexico, and Thailand are becoming new dreams for many. Oh, brother, people would rather go live lavish in Thailand with the risk of laying with a ladyboy than live in Canada, brother.
Oh my god, the amount of Canadians that we found in Mexico when I was there on vacation was crazy. People living there either permanently or at least doing the half and half thing, where they live half in Canada, then half in Mexico. And places like that are definitely becoming more desirable. In fact, there's even protests in Mexico trying to get gringos out of Mexico because they're causing the prices of rental units and houses to go up as well in Mexico. So Canada and America are bringing their problems elsewhere. The next video I want to talk about is something horrifying for anyone who lives in Canada and pays taxes. It is the CRA. This is a CRA horror story, a true story about something that happened to someone. The CRA mistakenly tried to extract a whopping $140,000 from the citizen.
Hi, welcome to the bank. What can I help you with? My wife recently passed away and I just need to transfer her RSPs over to my RRSPs. I'm so sorry to hear that, sir. Do you have the paperwork? Thank you. It'll just be a quick transfer from one RSP to another RSP. Yeah, I worked in a bank for 30 years, so I've done it multiple times. It's a very easy transaction. All right, 240,000 has been moved. Anything else I can help you with? No, that's it. Easy peasy. Thank you. You're very welcome. And again, sir, I'm so sorry about that. You have a wonderful day. You too. Thank you. Sometime later. What's this say? I owe the CRA $140,000 in taxes? For what? Oh my god. Oh my god, I have to get this straightened out. CRA, how can I help you? Yeah, hi, I just got a letter in the mail that I owe $140,000 in taxes. Why is this? Oh yeah, I see here that your wife passed away and you inherited $240,000. Oh, you know, it wasn't an inheritance. It didn't go into my pocket. When my wife passed away, I transferred her RSPs to my RSPs. It was a very easy transaction. I've worked in the bank for years, so I've done it many times. I know how it works. Yeah, we'll look into it, but I'm pretty sure you owe $140,000 in taxes. Yes, you look into that, and I will call back next week. Thanks. Bye. Sometime later. Yeah, just hang on, I'm getting a call. Hello? Hi, it's Gary with the CRA. We looked into that little problem you had, we investigated, and you definitely do owe us $140,000. No, I don't. It was an easy transaction. It's one RSP to another RSP. I did not take out the RSPs. I do not owe taxes until it comes out of an RSP. Okay. We'll be waiting for your payment. Have a great day, sir. 5 years of back and forth. Sorry, hang on. I'm getting another call from these stupid debt collectors. Hello. Hi, it's Jimmy Joe from Debt Collections. You still owe the CRA $140,000. You're accruing a lot of interest, and it needs to be paid ASAP. I don't owe anything. I'm calling Consumer Report. Bye. Hi, Consumer Report. I have a story for you. Sometime later. Hi, CRA. I'm from Consumer Report, and I'm going to be needing some answers. A few months later. It's mail today. It's from the CRA. Your issue has been resolved. You do not owe any taxes. Thank you. Why? What? When? Why? Why? Let me see. Yeah, hi. You guys have been after me for 5 years saying I owe $140,000 in taxes. But today I just got a letter that says the issue has been resolved. Can you tell me why it's been resolved? And how you came to the conclusion in the first place that I owed $140,000 in taxes? No, we can't. But you're welcome. Bye-bye.
That sends shivers down my spine. Holy crap, as a tax-paying citizen in Canada, that should alarm anyone. A simple transaction of just moving money from one RSP to another triggered something for the CRA to think that they owed $140,000. But think about that. So she said she transferred $240,000, and they were going to take $140,000. Okay, that's like what, 65, 70, almost 70% of that money going to the CRA. Potentially going to the CRA, but thank God that wasn't the case because she didn't even take out the money. It's just a transfer. But sometimes this stuff can get lost in the CRA. Very scary indeed.
So I was speaking with a friend today, and I said to her that the new poor or the new poverty in Canada is the working class. It ain't the people who don't have jobs, living up on the system, living life. It ain't the super rich. It's the working class in Canada. And when you can't afford to pay your rent, when you're struggling on a daily basis, wash your clothes, and when you go into the system or try to get into the system to get help, ain't nobody recognize you. It's cold. In this country, they want you to be in tears. They want you to be in tears. They want you to be on the floor for them to actually feel the pain that you're going through in Canada. Unbelievable. This country has changed a lot. It has changed a lot, and I'm not even over exaggerating. It has changed a lot. They don't respect the working class here. They don't respect the working class. As a single person in this country, you are invisible here. First of all, you're going to have to fight for respect here. And then working, filing for your taxes, and you get nada back.
Absolutely true. There is no respect at all for the working class here in Canada. Either you have made your money on real estate, work in the public sector, or you're independently wealthy. Those are really the only people that actually get respect in this country. So leave your thoughts down below about this video's subject, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.
China has pulled off something of a magic trick when it comes to oil independence. Hundreds of millions of people have moved from the countryside to the city, and they are making things. More than just t-shirts, toys, and tables. They're making semiconductors and solar panels, new port facilities, highways, railways, pipelines, fiber optic networks. But follow the oil. Like any explosively growing economy, here's how much crude oil China imported over roughly that same period of time. This is as expected, because when you're building factories, infrastructure, entire cities, you need what oil gives you, which is fuel, plastic, chemicals, even the roads that gas-burning cars are driving on. But here's the magic trick. The last 5 or so years, crude oil imports leveling off, even dropping in some years. How'd they do that? How did they reduce their dependence on the lifeblood of modern industry, the thing America produces more of than any other country?
So for the last 12, 15 years, certainly, China has been on a quiet and increasingly visible push to become the renewable energy superpower of the world.
China is the world's #1 importer of crude oil, about 11 million barrels of oil a day, which is most of the roughly 14, 15 million barrels of oil it uses a day. But over time, China began to acknowledge the possibility, the threat, that if the U.S. decided one day it wanted to harm China, it could choke off its supply. Because while you can move oil by rail and you can move it by pipeline, most oil is delivered by ship in giant tankers. China actually gets 90% of its crude oil this way, and that is a strategic vulnerability.
Where the United States becomes important is that because of the size of its navy, the size of its military bases around the world, the United States is theoretically in a position to strangle China from access to its oil imports.
We can find a really good example of that in the South China Sea. The U.S. routinely deploys aircraft carriers, destroyers, and other warships to the area. It operates nearly a dozen military bases there. And consider this narrow waterway, the Malacca Strait, running between Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. It is the main shipping channel between the Indian and Pacific Oceans. It connects oil exporters in the Middle East to oil importers like China. And it's one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world because taking it can shave 1,000 kilometers off your trip, given the alternative, which is to go through Indonesia's Sunda Strait instead. But let's say tensions over Taiwan boil over, and the U.S. were to decide to block Chinese traffic through that strait, which would block almost all Chinese oil.
Chinese have been talking about this Malacca dilemma since the year of 2001, 2002, right? Because the transportation or the shipment of the crude oil can be easily disrupted by the United States, which has a exceedingly large naval presence in the region.
A big worry for the Chinese government is, can it reliably get those imports into the country without any risk of intervention or interception?
Now, the experts we spoke to mostly agreed that a U.S. naval blockade in this region would be seen as so damaging to China's interests that it would amount to an act of war, which means, in most cases, maybe the U.S. would prefer not to go that far. But that just underscores the scale of the potential vulnerability, one that Xi Jinping himself pointed out just a few years ago. As a major manufacturing power, China has to secure its energy supply in its own hands. For him, this is a matter of national security, and one solution to this problem, rethinking the use of oil in the first place. With crude oil, you can make all kinds of things. Plastic, rubber, fertilizer, lubricants, solvents, asphalt is a big one too. But when we're talking about China, the primary use of crude oil is to make fuel.
12,000 cars lined up in a mad rush at Haikou in the Hainan province. These visuals have created headlines the world over for being one of the worst traffic jams ever.
And no country in the world has more cars right now than China. But that's only because China has so many people. And turns out, when you really dig into the numbers, you very quickly realize 450 million cars for 1.4 billion people means that most people do not own a car. Not yet, anyway. So there was the opportunity to upend the auto industry before it even really took hold.
For most countries, EV is seen as the future of driving, but for China, the future has arrived. Whether you're buying the car or building the car, providing the electricity or assembling the battery, everyone in China is entitled to government money and assistance.
China has invested massively in electric vehicles, but they did it in a really shrewd way.
The priority for China is renewable energy production. There's no point in having EVs if the EVs have to be charged off non-renewable sources for which you're having to rely on imports. So the EV strategy has followed, not preempted, the renewable energy investment strategy.
Yes, and I can show you 60 years of Chinese energy consumption in one simple graph to make this point. If you go back to 1965, you can see how China relied almost entirely on coal to generate electricity. Over time, oil came to form a more and more important part of the picture. But look what's happening here with hydro and nuclear and wind and solar. They've cut dramatically into the need for oil and coal. Today, China generates more wind and solar power than anybody. And just to give you a glimpse into what went into achieving that, with wind, for example, the magnets that help convert spin into electricity, those are made using rare earth elements for which China controls roughly 60 to 70% of worldwide production. If you want to talk about refining those raw materials, it's even higher. It's closer to 90% of global capacity. China has gone to great lengths to insulate its supply chain from outside interference.
China thought strongly right at the beginning, let's build the supply chain for the energy, then let's get the renewable energy construction going, and then let's move over to the EV capability. It's been intelligently sequenced.
And the Chinese government has played a very direct role in building that EV capability from the ground up. The Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington figures over the last 15 or so years, China has spent north of $200 billion supporting the electric vehicle industry. And just to give you an example, for the last 10 years, China has exempted qualifying EVs from a 10% sales tax, which can be thousands of dollars per car. But there were also consumer subsidies, manufacturer incentives, priority for R&D funding, preferential lotteries for handing out license plates, all of which help the industry survive and thrive at lower and lower price points. Look at this car right here. It's called the Seagull by BYD. It's the cheapest EV in their lineup, starting at under $10,000 US. And BYD recently overtook Tesla to become the #1 selling electric automaker in the world. Today, 7 out of every 10 EVs globally are made in China. Look how their industry has transformed in just the last 10 years. In 2015, 331,000 EVs sold in China. By last year, that number ballooned to 12.9 million, representing a larger and larger share of all cars sold. There are an estimated 14 million charging points across China, for crying out loud. You know how many there are in the United States? About 1/60 that number.
So, China's gone on a really interesting journey from infrastructure, critical minerals, domestic renewable energy production, EVs, exports, and the whole thing is a self-reinforcing chain.
As China builds out its EV industry, it has also worked to undermine America's authority in the global oil trade, circumventing it where they can.
Despite a raft of sanctions, Russia has continued shipping and selling its crude oil to the world.
It's estimated more than a fifth of China's oil imports last year was sanctioned oil, as in oil from countries that the U.S. tries to block. From Venezuela, an estimated 268,000 barrels per day. From Russia, 821,000 per day. And from Iran, 1.4 million barrels per day. Oftentimes, the buyers, independent refineries known as Chinese teapots. They're smaller, harder to track, and they operate with less scrutiny.
What a lot of them have been doing is
importing cheap oil, refining it, and then selling it elsewhere in Asia. And they have made a lot of money doing that. It's apparently a very lucrative business for them.
And this isn't the only way China's reshaping the global flow of energy bit by bit. Another example, right now, the U.S. holds the world's largest strategic oil reserve. Hundreds of millions of barrels, enough in theory to replace months of oil imports. China is trying to build something similar.
China is one of these countries that when oil prices are low, when crude oil prices are low, they will increase their imports and they'll dump some of that oil just into these giant storage tanks that they're constantly building. So they have massive inventories of crude oil.
A stockpile that would insulate China if the U.S. were to find a way to choke its supply. And China's other long-term play, what Donald Trump might call drill, baby, drill.
In 2019, we saw China's national oil companies roll out their first ever 7-year action plan for increasing exploration and production of oil and natural gas in China. And they started to pump tens of billions of dollars into this endeavor.
And this is an important detail because Chinese oil is notoriously hard to get at. It's deeper, more complex to extract. But consider, the ExxonMobil of China, it's called PetroChina, the country's largest oil and gas company, state-owned. Last year, they spent $38 billion on new infrastructure and new exploration. That's more than ExxonMobil and Chevron combined. They've been digging wells that, in some cases, run deeper than Mount Everest is high. Over the last several years, since around 2018, you can see what this growth in domestic production looks like. This climb represents millions of additional barrels of oil per day. Not enough to cover what China needs on a daily basis, mind you, but certainly enough to reduce what it needs to bring in. And that's really the subtlety of China's position in 2025. To be clear, it needs oil, and it will continue to need oil for a long time. But what was only a few years ago explosive growth in its thirst for world oil has slowed dramatically. Some estimates even figure China's growth in demand will peak in just a couple of years and then actually start dropping thereafter. That would be a big turning point for a country that sees itself as eventually replacing the United States as the world's largest economy. The Arctic is undergoing a transformation. It's driven by global warming and intense global competition.
Global tensions find a new stage in the warming Arctic. Tonight, the U.S. closely monitoring growing military cooperation between Russia and China.
The Arctic is no longer a low-tension region.
You've got the incoming U.S. president calling the Arctic a top priority and promising to drill for oil and gas. Canada is massively beefing up its military presence, investing $72 billion over the next couple of decades into Arctic defense. And Russia and China working together on what they call a polar Silk Road.
There are more people, more interested eyes looking to the Arctic.
So why exactly is all of this happening now? Let's go through. The Arctic is opening up. These thick blocks of ice are melting, clearing the way for ships to travel through. According to the Canadian government, by 2050, the Arctic Ocean will become an increasingly viable shipping route between Europe and Asia during the summer.
By the middle of this century, there will be no polar ice cap at the height of summer.
That's a big deal, because right now, the fastest way to ship goods from Europe to Asia is through the Suez Canal in Egypt. But, as we've seen more and more, the Suez Canal is not always the most reliable route.
A giant container ship ran aground in the Suez Canal after losing power.
Civilian shipping in the Red Sea has become more collateral damage to the war in Gaza.
So what if, instead of going down south and passing through the Middle East, you could go north and use the Arctic Ocean as a shortcut across the globe? There are essentially two ways you could do this. One is using what's known as the Northwest Passage. This would take you through the Arctic on the North American side, weaving through Canada's northern archipelagos. The other route through the Arctic is known as the Northern Sea Route. This one passes through the Russian side of the Arctic Ocean, along the Siberian coastline. Both of these routes offer a much shorter path between Europe and Asia than the Suez Canal. It shaves off up to 5,000 kilometers. That's a third of the trip, or up to a full week of travel. And the warmer the ocean gets, the easier those routes become to navigate. Countries realize this potential, and so there is a battle for control.
Even non-Arctic states are looking to the Arctic and inserting themselves into the Arctic as much as they can.
It has potential shipping lanes. It has a tremendous endowment of natural resources.
The Arctic is full of untapped gold, nickel, copper, diamonds, platinum, and researchers believe it's holding about 90 billion barrels of oil and 30% of the world's undiscovered natural gas. And all of this is creating incredible tension, partly because no one can seem to agree which parts of the Arctic belong to whom, and because the prospect of friendly negotiation is shrinking. Shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine, the Arctic Council, which is the place where Canada, the US, Nordic countries, and Russia all got together to discuss these issues, they stopped meeting entirely, which brings us to North America's most pressing concern when it comes to the Arctic.
Guardrails that prevent conflicts are increasingly under immense strain. Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine has led us all to ask, who's next?
Up here on the top of the world, there is a vast expanse of ice and of emptiness. And yet Russia has made deploying its military up here to these extreme conditions a real priority.
Russia has, by far, the largest share of Arctic territory. Almost a quarter of its territory is north of the Arctic Circle, and it controls 24,000 kilometers of Arctic coastline. Over the past few years, it has been steadily building up its military presence in the area, investing in air bases, naval ports, icebreaker fleets, upgrading its submarines. Russia says this is to deter adversaries from even considering a potential attack, and to show that if an attack came, they would defend themselves at all costs.
Historically, Russia's northern coast there was protected by ice, and there wasn't a lot of traffic. And so as the ice has retreated, and all of a sudden it's sort of like this potential, attack point.
But all of this has the West on edge because it knows Russia is not content simply to defend its holdings. It wants to expand its sphere of influence.
We now have 7 of the 8 Arctic states are NATO, and Russia is not NATO. That can create conditions for tension.
People have become, in North America, a lot more concerned about what the Russians are up to, what Vladimir Putin is up to.
After the end of the Cold War a few decades ago, Russia closed dozens of military bases in the Arctic. It also agreed to a low-tension approach to Arctic disputes. But over this past decade, it has reopened 50 of those military bases. It's estimated that Russia now has nearly double the number of military bases in the Arctic than Canada, the US, Denmark, and Norway combined. And over the past year, it has ramped up weapons testing in the region too, including testing of hypersonic cruise missiles that Russia says fly at 9 times the speed of sound and have a range of over 1,000 kilometers.
The Arctic is the shortest distance between North America and Eurasia, and so if you are shooting missiles between those two continents, you're going to go over Arctic routes.
This Russian military base in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, for example, is actually closer to Canada's military base in Nunavut than Nunavut is to Ottawa or Toronto. And just look how close this Russian military airbase is to Alaska. According to NORAD, that's the organization that tracks and protects North American airspace, Russia has been testing bombers capable of carrying nuclear weapons from this peninsula, at times coming within just 50 nautical miles of Alaskan territory. Now, to be clear, there's no reason to believe that Russia plans to actually use these bombers to attack North America, but the fact that they're testing them that close to the US has them and Canada thinking maybe they should beef up their military presence in that area too.
The Americans are nervous because they just don't know what to expect.
I think given the situation with Russia and sort of global geopolitical competition with China, we are very concerned about making sure that our missile defense architecture is fit to purpose.
And it's not just missile defense systems the West is focused on when it comes to the Arctic.
This is Polar Dagger, a mission intended to show Russia's decision makers what the U.S. military can do in the remote areas of the Arctic.
Between January and March of 2024, NATO conducted its biggest joint military exercise since the Cold War, called Steadfast Defender 24. One of its main focuses, the Arctic. NATO says the goal was to show their ability and intent to reinforce and defend the Nordic region in the event of Russian aggression, and to show their capability to carry out such operations in Arctic terrain.
We have a large number of Marines who have never been in the snow in their life.
Say, for instance, in a future conflict, being able to fly with different countries, just the one that is on station in that area at that time, is making us 100 times more dangerous.
20,000 soldiers, 50 plus ships, more than 100 aircraft from 13 countries were involved in these Arctic drills. Russia took this as a provocation. And since then, things have really started to ramp up. The Chinese military is involved too. In July, the US released this photo that they say shows joint flights by Russian and Chinese bombers near Alaska's coast. A few months later, China and Russia openly announced they were running joint aerial and sea patrols in the area. This video, recorded from the cockpit of a US F-16 flying near Alaska, shows a Russian fighter jet maneuvering within just a few feet of the American plane in September.
We're seeing activities by foreign states that are approaching northern communities, and that's a real problem.
Analysts have, for a long time, argued that Canada's Arctic is much too vulnerable. And that shows not just on a military and national security level, but among people who've lived there for generations.
In terms of airfields, in terms of naval and civilian port facilities, in terms of roads that are durable, that can survive climate change, massive underinvestment historically. And that's had an impact on the flourishing of civilian communities, but it's also had an impact on the ability of Canada to defend its sovereignty claims in the high north.
Canada's Department of National Defence underscored that very point recently in showing just how many fewer active personnel are stationed there right now. And the infrastructure, those important airports, naval ports, and bases, they are also too few. And what's there is in rough shape. 40% of the buildings are more than 50 years old.
We do not have the capacity to fight very hard in the north. We don't have the equipment, we don't have the training, we don't have the forward stations, we don't have supply depots. So Canada has a long way to go to get to say where Alaska is, but also even to get to where Scandinavia is, particularly where Norway, Finland, and Sweden are. They're very heavily militarized compared to Canada's north.
So Canada's plans are as follows. The government is investing more than $70 billion over the next 2 decades into new icebreakers and patrol ships, drones, special aircraft that track enemies in the air, on the surface of the ocean, and even underwater, dozens of fighter jets. The list goes on. But more than half of that investment is being funneled into NORAD, into new high-tech surveillance systems, and upgrades to infrastructure like the airfields NORAD uses.
Some analysts say we should get ready for this. We didn't think Russians would invade the Ukraine, and there they are, woven into a deep war. The integration of the United States is a huge part of our defense strategy.
When you look at the document, it actually talks about the North American Arctic.
That really does yoke the U.S. and Canada together very closely. It makes it clear that the U.S. and Canada would be a team together in the Arctic, and that we should be approaching some of our challenges together.
Analysts say this shows Canada is taking a significant step in the direction that the U.S. wants it to go in, to begin to address its vulnerabilities in the Arctic, and to shore up what is about to become a key battleground for resources and global influence. The stakes are only going to get higher. It's hard to turn on a U.S. news channel these days without hearing someone refer to
the national debt.
The national debt. The national debt.
It's big, massive, actually, but it's not new, right? The U.S. has been deep in debt for a while now, so why all of a sudden does it feel like everyone's getting a little panicky? Journalists, investors, politicians, economists. Well, for starters, there's this.
President Trump's one big beautiful bill, passing in the House by the slimmest of margins.
The bill is passed.
We call it the one big beautiful bill.
Supporters say that bill making its way through Congress right now, it reimagines border security, immigration, introduces sweeping tax cuts. But one big downside is that these things are expensive. Overall, the Congressional Budget Office projects it could add an extra $2.8 trillion to the federal debt over the next decade.
It's an astronomically large sum.
Okay, now, to be fair, there is a long presidential tradition of adding to the country's debt, and you certainly can't blame the size of the debt on Trump alone. But he did spend an awful lot of time swearing up and down that he wouldn't make the problem worse.
We'll hand him a little Bitcoin and wipe out our $35 trillion. Use trillions and trillions of dollars to reduce our taxes and pay down our national debt. I want to really make a lot of money, pay off debt.
And if the government's own number crunchers say Trump's plan will add trillions to the debt load,
what a lot of people don't realize is that even under current law, we're on this exploding path of debt relative to the size of the economy.
There's no question the United States is on a trajectory that's unsustainable.
So here's the trillion-dollar question. When does all of this go from just some mathy, abstract worry years off in the future to becoming everyone's problem? Here's a look at the running national debt clock in the U.S. As of this recording, it's just over $36 trillion. Some of that is debt that gets swapped between governmental agencies, but the vast majority of that is real public-facing debt. Easily paid off if every single American would just pony up $100,000. But for context, the debt is about double what it was just 10 years ago. You can blame both Republicans and Democrats for that. And yes, some more than others, even setting the pandemic aside, but consistently all American presidents in the last 20 or so years have spent deep into the red. Add that all together, that's how you get to 30 or so trillion. But this alone isn't proof that there's a problem because, and this will sound crazy, we haven't yet established whether $30 trillion is a particularly big number. But we can figure that out by examining the U.S. debt to GDP ratio. Yay! Because, to put it really simply, if I owe my friend $100, what makes that debt fine or catastrophic really depends on how much money I make in a year, right? Like, if I'm between jobs, that $100 is an expense I might not be able to afford, but if I'm a billionaire, then who cares? And the U.S. is actually a trillionaire. The U.S. economy, by virtue of its size, can tolerate a surprising amount of debt, but not unlimited. Right now, the debt it has to eventually pay back to the public is just over what the U.S. makes in a year. Just over 100% of its GDP, meaning its debt pile is the same size as the country's entire annual output. That is Second World War level debt. Except, in 2025, there's no world war, and the U.S. isn't spending a whole bunch of money to rebuild Europe.
The difference between the 21st century in the U.S. and the 20th century is when we had an emergency in the 20th century, we cleaned up afterwards. We brought the debt back down. So we had World War II, which came back down. In the 21st century, Great Recession, it goes from 30 to 70. Pandemic goes from 70 to 100, and no one fixes anything.
So when does this big issue start actually becoming a big problem? Like, if the U.S. is at 100% debt to GDP ratio, is there a higher number, a tipping point, where you can't just keep borrowing and carrying on? Well, like all things finance, there's no light switch moment where suddenly U.S. finances collapse into a black hole, but 175%. 175. That is, according to the economists we spoke to, when things might start to unravel in a serious way. The thinking being, at that level, the interest payments on your debt are likely so high relative to what you have to spend each year as a government that you simply can't raise taxes fast enough or cut spending deep enough to stay afloat. That's what happened to Greece. In the early 2010s, Greek debt ballooned past 175% of GDP, and in order to avoid default, the government was forced to cut essential services and raise taxes. The economy collapsed into a deep recession, and regular people paid the price with pension cuts, mass unemployment, all blanketed in anger.
Greeks were defiant and angry over such demands. Now, some of them are sounding just plain scared. I'm afraid that worse days will come, says this man. Much more difficult days.
And it took years, not a year, not 2 years, years and years for them to get back to the point where the economy was growing again.
Now, to be clear, the U.S. is nowhere near that point right now, but the trajectory is accelerating. According to one estimate by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, that's a nonpartisan policy group, if Trump were to deliver on all of the measures he promised during his presidential campaign, the debt-to-GDP ratio could rise to 143% in just 10 years, and that's their conservative estimate. Worst case, they figure it could rise as high as 161%. And their estimates are not unique. The Congressional Budget Office, so that's the U.S. government itself, they modeled even further ahead, projecting if all Trump's tax cuts were to be made permanent, U.S. debt could reach 200% of GDP by 2047 and 250% by 2054.
So literally double it over the course of the next 30 years just from this legislation alone. So this is a very significant increase in our aggregate debt burden.
And here's the thing. The balance sheet doesn't even need to get that bad for real problems to show up. All it really takes is for investors to lose faith that the government has things under control.
Once capital markets stop believing that Congress will ever get its act together, I mean, literally things could unravel tomorrow.
Buying U.S. government debt is seen as one of the safest investments in the world because the U.S. has always paid its debts on time, in full. In fact, when the U.S. pays its debt by issuing bonds and then by paying investors an interest rate for buying those bonds, you'll hear investors referring to that bond rate as the risk-free rate, meaning it's not the biggest return on investment in the world, but it's just about guaranteed. So what happens if investors start to worry that maybe the U.S. government doesn't have its fiscal house in order? What if investing in U.S. debt isn't completely risk-free?
The crucial day is the day they lose confidence in the ability of the United States to repay in a timely fashion. And if they lose faith in that, they start jacking up the interest rates that they charge the U.S. as compensation for the risk we don't pay back, or they cut you off entirely.
And that's important because that's where a bad situation can turn worse. The riskier the investment, the more expensive it can become to pay back. And all kinds of factors, from tariffs to inflation to how highly changeable U.S. policy on anything can be from day to day, they all get baked in.
Bonds, they've had huge move the last few days. Debt deficits and tariffs, curve steepening. We're over 50 basis points in 2s to 10s.
There are a lot of indicators out there that makes the bond market a little nervous.
The risks aren't that treasuries aren't going to be paid out. The risks are more that as you look at interest rates, they're going to have to be higher because people are going to demand higher interest rates to be willing to hold so much U.S. debt.
And those higher interest rates can snowball real fast. According to J.P. Morgan, if bond rates rise by just 1%, the U.S. would have to pay $300 billion more in interest to its debt holders every year. That's on top of the $1.1 trillion it's already paying in interest every year. And then, once you throw in the extra $100 billion in interest that Trump's bill is projected to add annually, you can start to see why some people are getting nervous.
The thing that we always worry about with irresponsible youth is you give them a credit card, they run up a bill, and now they have to get a new credit card to pay off the old credit card. Well, the U.S. borrowed $1.8 trillion last year, and over $1 trillion of it was to pay interest on previous borrowing. So we are perilously close to the moment when you might want to worry a lot.
These things can spiral out of control, and that's kind of the big risk.
And that risk now has credit agencies on alert too. Just a few weeks ago, Moody's stripped from the U.S. the very last of its highest tier credit ratings. Their decision, they wrote, was because of the increase over more than a decade in government debt and interest payment ratios to levels that are significantly higher than similarly rated sovereigns.
They said, you have too much debt, and you have to pay too much interest. You have a problem. That to me is more alarming.
But all of this is still pretty abstract, right? Maybe you're wondering, okay, but how does this affect regular people? Totally understandable that the financial health of the U.S. government may not be the first thing everyday Americans wake up each morning and dwell upon, but what happens in Washington doesn't stay in Washington. The bond rate, for example, doesn't just affect investors, or even how expensive it is for the U.S. government to pay those investors. It's also considered the baseline for mortgage rates, auto loans, business loans, credit card rates. If bond rates go up, often so too do all those.
And so that's going to be the real problem, is that you can imagine mortgage rates persist at high returns, higher yields, and therefore higher cost to customers.
It means that you're going to pay thousands of dollars more when you try to take out a car loan, or it means you're going to pay thousands of dollars more when you try to take out a small business loan to start your small business. So all of this reverberates in the real economy in ways that households can feel in super meaningful ways.
And then there's the simple fact that every dollar the U.S. pays in interest on debt is a dollar not spent on something else. Right now, interest payments make up about 14% of the federal budget. That's more than what the U.S. spends on national defense. And the way this is all going, it's not out of the question for interest on debt to eventually become a more expensive line item than Social Security or healthcare, too.
You are crowding out important investments that need to happen by taking up a lot of fiscal space.
And if everything gets squeezed, what happens when something goes wrong? When the world is suddenly face to face with another pandemic or war or global recession?
We're not going to have the capacity to respond with as much energy and as much vigor from a fiscal perspective because a bunch of that space has kind of been taken up.
Once you have a debt crisis, you can't issue new debt to get out of that. There's no easy solution.
Now, there are Republicans who claim Trump's
great, big, beautiful bill
actually helps solve the debt problem because, the way they see it, things like boosting energy production, deregulation, cutting entire government departments, that'll kickstart growth and expand the tax base. Then throw revenue from tariffs into the mix, and they argue that should be enough to offset all the new spending in Trump's bill and put the U.S. on a trajectory of 3% growth for the next few years. But not everyone's buying it.
The calculations are released by the White House suggesting that this tax cut could pay for itself. They're essentially a work of fiction. They don't have any model behind them.
I went back and looked, and forecasting 10 straight years of 3 percentage point growth, there were only 6 quarters in the history of the U.S. when that was a good forecast. They all occurred in the 20th century. None of them happened in the 21st century. So it's not something I think anyone should count on. It's hard to move the growth rate of an economy. Moving it by 0.3% on average over 10 years, huge success. A full percentage point, unimaginable.
In fact, a range of nonpartisan analysts, including the U.S. government's Congressional Budget Office, have argued that under almost any realistic model, the U.S. debt is on a sharp upwards trajectory. So what's the bottom line? Well, pretty much everyone agrees right now America still has time to change course, but as one economist told us, debt crises happen slowly and then all at once. And when that happens, every solution is painful.
I'm at this strawberry festival in Ohio, and I'm asking a question that most Americans get wrong.
The CEO of Lowe's, you know, the hardware store, how much more do you think he makes compared to the average Lowe's worker who is helping you find the screwdrivers or whatever?
3 times. 3.
Also 3. Okay, how much more do we think the CEO of McDonald's made than his workers last year?
I'm going to say 9.
The CEO of McDonald's made 1,212 times what his average worker made. 557 times more, 410 times more than the average Home Depot worker.
Regardless of their politics, there's one thing that most Americans agree on. CEOs make way too much money.
I'm a paycheck-to-paycheck woman. It's not fair. I'm a laundry lady. I make less than $15 an hour.
I was a manager at McDonald's.
Okay, so you've seen it from the inside.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But it wasn't always this way. If you go back to even just the mid-1960s, CEOs were making about 20 times as much as their workers. Today, that ratio has exploded to 290 times more. So, what happened? This is the story of how the wealthy took a weird corporate trick that used to be illegal and used it to supercharge their wealth at the expense of their workers. And why this year, it could get way worse.
Slap them for good luck.
Felix Allen used to work at Lowe's Home Improvement in New Orleans.
I started at $12 an hour. Straight up, there have been people who were alive, when Martin Luther King Jr. was working on the Poor People's Campaign, working at our store, making less than $15 an hour.
Those figures track with what most Lowe's workers make nationwide, about $33,000 a year. The company's CEO made 557 times more in 2023.
And we're going to be great.
One thing that became frustrating pretty quickly was understaffing. Often there were too many customers and not enough people in red vests. It's stressful. It wears on you.
It's not just Lowe's. Workers at Home Depot, CVS, and Starbucks also say that understaffing is endemic nationwide. But all these companies aren't super profitable. I mean, wouldn't it make sense for them to just have enough staff scheduled on the floor to help their customers? That's just good business, right? Well, it used to be. Let's rewind back to 1979. That's when Lowe's graduated from a single North Carolina hardware store to a nationwide chain with a listing on the New York Stock Exchange. Back then, the CEO of a company like Lowe's basically had 3 options for what to do with their profits. They could put them back into the business, maybe open some new stores, or invest in some fancy inventory software. They might use some of it to reward all of those new shareholders with a payment called a dividend. Maybe they use it to invest in their workers, pay for them to learn a new skill, or at least hire enough of them at a high enough wage to help their existing customers. Or maybe they do a little bit of all 3. Remember this chart? This is the era that we're talking about.
The gap between the average big company CEO and their typical worker was about 25 to 1.
Corporations were largely reinvesting in their innovation process, and in some cases, because of strong unions, paying their workers living wages.
But then something shifted in American corporate culture. It would eventually lead to the explosion of CEO pay that we've seen since then.
It was a complete revolution in the way American companies were run. There's a scene in the 1991 Danny DeVito movie, Other People's Money, that actually does a pretty good job showing this new way of thinking.
Make stockholders richer. Are you going to liquidate New England Wire and Cable? And if so, what about the people who work here?
Danny DeVito plays a corporate raider who is trying to convince the shareholders of a small New England cable company to sell him their shares so that they can cash out when he liquidates the company.
You invested in a business, and this business is dead. Let's have the intelligence to sign the death certificate of our employees, or our community. What will happen to them? I got 2 words for that. Who cares?
He tells the shareholders that the company has done them wrong by not prioritizing their payouts.
They sucked you dry. And our stock, 1/6 what it was 10 years ago.
DeVito is styled as the kind of lovable villain of this movie, but he actually represents a way of thinking that was taking over American business at the time.
The way that we have thought about the purpose of the corporation since the Reagan Revolution is to make as much money as possible for shareholders.
We're going to turn the bull loose.
I refer to this as shareholder primacy.
In the movie, the shareholders eventually agreed to sell to DeVito's character over the objections of the company's CEO. In real life, shareholders found a way to make sure that CEOs always put their interests above everybody else's. Instead of paying CEOs a salary in cash, like workers at the rest of the company, start paying them in company stock. The idea spread like wildfire.
Well, if one CEO starts to be paid in this new structure and you see their compensation go up very rapidly, that's going to spread very quickly across the entire ecosystem. It's like keeping up with the Joneses.
Something else happened when CEOs started getting paid in company stock, and it goes a long way towards explaining why companies like Lowe's won't schedule enough workers to help customers, or pay their employees like Felix a living wage. Remember those 3 options that Lowe's and other companies used to have for what to do with their profits? Well, in 1982, right before CEO pay started to really take off, they added a 4th option: buying shares of the company's stock. Here's how it works. Let's say each share of Lowe's stock sells for $100 on the open market. Then the CEO of Lowe's decides to use some of the company's profits to buy back some of those shares. Now, all of a sudden, with fewer shares remaining, each share is worth a bunch more. Ta-da! If this is reading to you like some kind of scammy corporate magic trick, you're not wrong.
For much of our history, stock buybacks were illegal.
The lawyers of big companies knew that a company could be accused of manipulating its market price if it went ahead and did stock buybacks.
That changed when Ronald Reagan was elected in 1980 on a platform of deregulation, and he picked a Wall Street executive to be the head of the SEC. And that SEC chair decided that allowing stock buybacks would help companies that wanted to enrich their executives and their shareholders without really having to do anything to improve their performance.
The Schoolhouse Rock theory of investing holds that in order for a company's stock price to go up, they have to actually do something, like increasing their pollution. I mean, their sales.
Looks as if their sales are going up sky high. Better call my broker and tell him to buy.
But with buybacks, corporations can raise their stock price without actually doing anything. I mean, just put yourself in the shoes of the Lowe's CEO. Nearly 80% of your annual pay is in company stock, and you get a $3 million bonus if the stock price hits a certain level. Your workers created nearly $7 billion in profits last year. What do you do with the money? Use it to make a bunch of your part-time workers full-time so they can help customers? Gotta pay the shareholders their dividends. Don't want to get fired. Use it to pay your employees a living wage so they stick with the company longer. Or use it to do a massive stock buyback, which literally makes the shares that you own worth more and ensures that you get that $3 million bonus.
Why wouldn't they? If you put an incentive structure in place where CEOs legally manipulate the market price of the stock that directly and indirectly affects their own compensation, why wouldn't they?
They can inflate their own paychecks without having to do anything to improve company performance.
Stock buybacks are a huge reason why the pay gap between CEOs and their workers jumped in the 80s and 90s and has stayed high ever since.
You've seen consistently companies like Lowe's or Walmart or Starbucks where workers have been organizing. They have billions of dollars going out the door in stock buybacks. They say they cannot afford to pay their workers even a very, very low basic wage.
They're literally buying back their own stocks. It's hard for me to understand, but it's clear that if they're doing that, they got some coin to throw around, and they're getting paid however many hundreds of dollars per hour. And yet, my coworker who has worked at Lowe's for 20 years is making less than 15. I mean, it's almost like laughable.
obviously incredibly offensive.
When companies started paying their CEOs in stock, it helped kickstart a massive nationwide transfer of wealth from workers to CEOs and shareholders. More recently, that wealth transfer has gone into overdrive thanks to one specific law.
Another huge turning point was the 2017 tax reform.
The biggest tax cut, biggest reform of all time.
Now, as Trump and the Republicans are working overtime to make these tax cuts permanent in his big, beautiful bill, it's easy to see how it'll supercharge this wealth transfer from workers to CEOs, because we already have all the evidence.
The biggest giveaway in that 2017 reform was the slashing of the corporate tax rate from 35 to 21%.
This change gave corporations a huge amount of cash to throw around.
Company leaders promised that they would use their windfalls from that tax cut and funnel it almost immediately into workers' hands through wage increases and bonuses.
Where you're going to start seeing a lot more money in your paycheck.
Well, what happened after that bill was passed? A handful of companies gave some modest bonuses, but then that was it.
Can you guess what they did instead?
It's not just a big year for earnings, it's a big year for buybacks. Are expected to hit a record $1 trillion this year.
Companies announcing big share buyback programs along with their earnings reports. Of course, the irony of it being named the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is that very, very little of these savings went to the workforce. Many people, including myself, were predicting that we would see buybacks as a main way that companies were utilizing the gains, but we saw it in levels that I didn't even expect.
It really changed the norm for stock buyback spending.
When we did a big tax cut, and when they took the money and did buybacks, that's not building a hangar, that's not buying aircraft, that's not doing the kind of things that I want them to do. We didn't think we would have had to restrict it because we thought they would have known better.
Clearly, they don't know better. And even if we take Trump at his word here that he didn't know companies were going to do all these buybacks with their tax savings, it raises a really important question. Why is he about to run the exact same play? Trump's big, beautiful bill gives corporations another massive tax cut, but it doesn't put any limits on buybacks or tax them more aggressively, which was something that one of his own cabinet members, Marco Rubio, floated back in 2019.
We do want to create a preference for reinvesting it back into your business to increase productivity, innovation.
And do you want to guess why Rubio's buybacks tax isn't on the table this time around? Because days after he merely suggested it, Wall Street investors and their protectors in Congress threw a proper little fit. One investment advisor told CNBC it was part of a war on wealth. Another called it an attack on democracy in a Financial Times op-ed.
I'm not sure what the problem is we're trying to solve here. Yes, there have been stock buybacks too. I just don't get this, the alarm over a perfectly normal, healthy aspect of a market economy.
Legislators saying we know better how to deploy corporate capital than the managers in the business.
Fast forward 6 years, and there is not one peep of buybacks opposition among Republicans. So that's the story of how CEOs ransacked America's corporations and took everything for themselves. It used to be a literal crime, now it's just business as usual. And it's no wonder that so many Americans feel that the politicians who let this happen aren't representing them.
Do you all feel comfortable sharing who you voted for in the last presidential election?
Didn't like you.
Did vote. If you had a candidate that was running on a platform of capping CEO pay, would you have voted?
Probably. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let them know what it's like for us regular people.
I didn't vote for president.
If there was a presidential candidate out here talking about capping CEO pay at, I think what you said, like 3, 4, 5 times, would you support that candidate?
Yes.
It's not something that you hear politicians talk about a lot. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, the big donors, a lot of previous politicians, their wives, their families, that are all capitalizing off of this money. There's a whole lot of votes out there available for purchase.
But you think that, like, regular folks, people who are working for a living, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely vote for a president like that.
Thank you so much for watching our video. If you'd like to see more stories like this, be sure to like and subscribe to get more Perfect Union in your feed. And if you have ideas for stories we should investigate, drop them in the comments below.
Actually, my heart's kind of pitter-pattering. Just sitting here with these memories and looking around. It's kind of making the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and I feel like I might puke. Like, this is what they did to us. This is what they did to our community. And it all started right here.
Yeah. The last time I was in East Palestine, things were pretty different.
Those flames. Look at that shit.
The town is under a state of emergency after 50 train cars derailed, causing a massive fire a half-mile long, which lit up the night sky and burned for hours.
I'm from this county. I went to their high school dances, barbecues, and I was there a few weeks after the derailment to document the unfolding man-made disaster.
Why the fuck would you let Norfolk do that? Like, why would you let them clean up their own mess?
2 years later, East Palestine is quiet.
It's Twilight Zone. It's like living on this movie set, this fantasy world.
But behind the scenes, a much bigger scandal is still unfolding.
Every one of these little stories in of itself is shocking, but the totality of it, like, we have been stabbed in the back by everyone.
Do you feel like Norfolk Southern paid as big a price as you did?
You got to be outside your mind. You must be outside your mind.
I wish there was one smoking gun here. The problem is, with East Palestine, there's about 30 smoking guns.
There are no accidents. This derailment was 100% preventable.
I'm a Trump supporter. He needs to make this right. He has the ability, the opportunity to.
We lived right over here in this house in the bottom. I brought my daughter home from the hospital here. It was our little piece of country in the middle of the city.
Jamie Wallace had plans of raising her daughter in East Palestine.
Every single happy moment in my life was spent right here in this town.
But on February 3rd, 2023, all of that changed.
50 train cars derailed, causing a massive fire.
5 of the cars that derailed were carrying vinyl chloride.
That's all the poisonous gas that's leaving our town.
When I saw that big mushroom cloud, it was like just that big dark cloud over the whole community.
That mushroom cloud was the result of a controlled detonation carried out by the railroad company Norfolk Southern. 1 million pounds of toxic vinyl chloride were burned, released into the air, and spread across 16 states. What really sticks in your mind about that whole experience?
The fear, the panic, the not knowing.
But just 2 days later, residents were told that it was safe to return home.
The EPA was saying everything was fine, and as soon as I pulled in this driveway, you can see it runs along the creek. I get out of my car, can't breathe, coughing, skin's on fire. I look over at this creek here, and this is Sulphur Run, the most contaminated creek in town. And instantly I knew something wasn't right.
Jamie didn't stick around much longer. She took her daughter to a rental outside of town. But most residents did stay, trusting state officials who said that it was safe. When you heard that at the time, did you believe it?
Yeah, what was absolutely. Yeah, it's their government. They're not going to lie to us. Why would they put us in danger?
Chris Albright lives with family a half-mile away from the tracks.
The night it happened.
And which window?
Looked right out this window.
Just 2 weeks after the derailment, his symptoms started setting in.
I couldn't breathe. Yeah, I couldn't walk from here to the door without stopping.
Chris had been healthy and active his whole life, but by the middle of March, he was diagnosed with severe heart failure.
I really thought that I was going to be dead soon. I really thought I was going to be dead. With my health condition, like, there was no way I could stay in the house. There was absolutely no way.
So he and his family packed up and moved to a hotel outside of town.
We had one room. That's what we lived in for 4 months.
How did it come to an end?
Was it safe to go back or something, or when did you move?
We ran out of money. When we left there, I had $40 in my savings account. $40. I'm still suffering health effects, and they want me to go back to this house that I know is not safe to go back to.
To this day, the EPA and the state of Ohio still claim that East Palestine is safe. But in just the last 2 years, hundreds of residents have reported getting sick.
Look at my eyes. I look crazy. My skin has been red like a lobster.
Federal workers actually got sick while they were surveying in East Palestine after that derailment.
They showed symptoms similar to what other people have been talking about.
I have been diagnosed with asthma. I have periodontal disease and my teeth are falling out. And that's just what I know of.
We sort of heard the messaging that everything was fine at the same time that people were reporting they were sick. And we thought we'd seen this movie before.
That's Dr. Beatrice Gollum, a professor of medicine at University of California, San Diego. She's currently conducting a large-scale health study in East Palestine.
I think where claims have been made that residents are all safe, it's been based on a lot of presumptions. The safety from many of those chemicals is simply not known. There's often no or very limited human testing.
And even if it is true that East Palestine is now safe, that doesn't erase the toxic exposure that already took place.
I think there's often a misunderstanding that when the toxin goes away, the injury goes away. But when the hammer that hit a person's head goes away, the problem from that doesn't go away.
Look at 9/11. It took how many years before the illnesses started showing up? And when they say no one died yet.
Dr. Gollum's study is still ongoing, and it could be years before residents know the full effects of the toxic plume that engulfed their town. But there is one thing we do know, thanks to a recent investigation into Norfolk Southern, which revealed that all of this was unnecessary.
They lied. We didn't need to blow those trains up. They lied.
They were making this pitch that an explosion was inevitable, but the science of this proves otherwise.
Jared Cassidy is the safety lead for the largest rail union in the country, and he was part of a major federal investigation into Norfolk Southern's crucial decision to conduct a vent and burn.
When you look at what took place in East Palestine, we have cars on fire, a derailment that has caused catastrophe across an entire community. And so now we have the commodity, the oxyvinyl, that's starting to heat up. It's becoming unstable. The railroads called into the war room all of the major players that are part of the emergency response, which did include the governor, it did include state police, it included the volunteer fire chief. And the railroads make the pitch that, look, this is the situation. The temperatures are rising. We believe that polymerization is imminent, and the best course of action is to do a vent and burn. But outside of the room is oxyvinyls, the actual producer of the commodity, the one that understands the volatility and all of the reactions that can take place. And they're not being allowed a meaningful voice into the conversation. And so the railroads just keep pushing this, hey, it's in trouble, it's in trouble, it's in trouble. And ultimately, it's the volunteer fire chief is the one that makes the decision. But because he's out of his lane, he's relying on the railroad's information.
We were told based upon the conditions at hand, in order to do it that day, we had 13 minutes.
And so the folks that are responsible, theoretically, for the decision-making don't have the education or the information they need to properly consider what's being thrown at them. And they rely on the railroads that, hey, they're telling me the truth. And unfortunately, while they're making these decisions, the temperatures of the cars are actually starting to trend downward.
It's going down, yeah, the line's going down.
It is going down. That is indicative of a commodity that's stabilizing. The fact is we were heading in a good direction. And they decided to do the vent and burn anyway.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Chair Holiday, for being here and for all your work. In March of 2024, after a year-long investigation, the National Transportation Safety Board confirmed what many people had feared.
In order for polymerization to occur, which was Norfolk Southern and their contractors' justification for the vent and burn, you would have to have rapidly increasing temperatures and some sort of infusion of oxygen, neither of which occurred. Oxyvinyl was on scene. They believed polymerization was not occurring and there was no justification to do a vent and burn.
What you had was a railroad that was trying to rush the cleanup, trying to prioritize the movement of trains above all else. And so they manufactured a story that ultimately was proven to not be true.
There was another option. Let it cool down. It was cooling down.
When you look at the railroad industry, there's always something in the back of every decision they've made, and that's a profit margin.
This is a really, really troubling set of circumstances. This town very well may have been poisoned to facilitate the rapid movement of freight.
I want a response from Norfolk Southern that we can look back 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We can be proud of how Norfolk Southern responded, but more importantly, the folks of East Palestine can be proud of how Norfolk Southern responded 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And we're on that path.
In the 2 years since the derailment, Norfolk Southern has promised to dedicate millions of dollars towards making it right in East Palestine.
They gave us the old train depot that's been sitting there dilapidated for years. I think they spent like $1 million allegedly to renovate it.
We had the street for the winter. They paid for all the rides for everybody. Nobody had to pay anything.
But many of those promises have fallen short.
I made a commitment that we would set up a regional training facility, and today we kept our promise.
They were supposed to not only have the training center, but pay for like the upkeep of it and everything. That's completely gone.
The East Palestine School District is the latest to sue Norfolk Southern.
Lawsuit claiming the railroad broke a $30 million promise to rebuild the athletic facilities and a wellness center.
But there was one promise that Norfolk Southern couldn't walk away from. A class action lawsuit which yielded a $600 million settlement for residents within 20 miles of the derailment.
That's a lot of money. It is. $600 million is a lot of money. Not when it's divided up and divvied up between how many people.
According to the settlement, anyone within 2 miles of the derailment can theoretically get up to $70,000 per household for property damage and up to $25,000 per person for health problems.
So you say $70,000 per household. Let's break that down. That's in the 1 to 2 mile zone. So my household of 4, that would have been $17,500 a piece. But wait, we were in a hotel for 6 months. They're deducting all that. We gotta get zero.
Over 4 months in the hotel with food, we ran up over $35,000. We have to get that back. We might get $35,000.
Seems like a dumb question now, but is that enough?
That's not a drop in a bucket. $35,000 towards cancer treatment. Burn it. That's not going to do anything. That's not going to do anything.
You ask people around town, not one person will say, oh, I took it because it's a good deal. They took it because they want to get out. I mean, you know the people that I know. Some of them haven't had $1,000 in their bank account in their life.
$600 million is one of the largest settlements in Norfolk Southern's history. But the company expects most of those costs to be covered by their insurance. So the final cost will be a fraction of the annual revenue for the $62 billion company, which saw its stock fall on February 3rd, 2023, only to completely recover in the months that followed.
They wanted to get it done, shoved under the rug, shut us up, and move on.
They took away my hometown, and they walk around, and they made money. What stops them from doing it again? Because it will happen again.
Basic question, are we any safer today than we were when the train derailed in East Palestine in February of 2023?
No, we're not. We're not. Partly because Congress never passed the Railway Safety Act.
That's Sherrod Brown, the former senator from Ohio. In the wake of the derailment, he and J.D. Vance teamed up to draft what could have been a historic piece of legislation.
The Railway Safety Act would boost safety requirements for trains carrying hazardous materials.
It shouldn't take a train derailment for elected officials to put partisanship aside.
The disaster in East Palestine drew attention to an alarming fact. The railroad industry is extremely unregulated. Local officials don't even know about the contents of the trains that pass through their towns. And there are 3 major derailments, on average, every single day. Critics in the industry blame a practice known as Precision Scheduled Railroad, or PSR.
They're cutting these people down to the bone. and forcing them to work to the absolute max. They're not letting them have adequate sick time or rest time. It's just trying to do more with less, and that's the bottom line of that.
PSR is all about moving trains from point A to point B with as few stops as possible. Over the years, that's resulted in larger trains.
You see these huge trains, they're bigger than you can imagine when they've jumped the track and are lying on their sides.
And smaller crews.
The railroads insisted they only need one person on a train, although they want two people in a cockpit if they're flying on their corporate plane. So there's more than a little hypocrisy there, but what else is new?
The Railway Safety Act was designed to eliminate many of these risks.
The Railway Safety Act would have made sure there were at least two people driving these trains. That would have required the railroads to notify communities when they were coming through with hazardous material.
But the railroad industry had a different plan. In just 1 year, the 5 largest carriers spent an estimated $17 million lobbying to block the bill. And they were successful. The Railway Safety Act never made it to the floor of Congress.
These guys are so effective that corporate lobbying, there was overwhelming support for this bill from the public.
I'm a Republican, and I worry that there has been a movement in my party in response to the legislation that I proposed that would not hold Norfolk Southern or the rail industry accountable.
Basically what they're saying is we don't feel like we should be a regulated industry. We should have the freedom to do whatever we want.
As mad as I am at Norfolk Southern, I think I'm more pissed at my government. I used to be proud to be an American. What hillbilly isn't? And now I'm not a proud American at all. Yeah. I'm a really pissed off, upset, betrayed, lied to American. And when you break my trust to the level of my child's life, that's my child's life. What would you do?
On the second anniversary of the derailment, Jamie and Chris joined hundreds of other residents in filing a new lawsuit, claiming that Norfolk Southern, the EPA, and the CDC had all failed to protect them.
Every step of the way, we've had to fight. And that's what I learned. No one's going to fight for us. We have to fight for ourselves. You know how many politicians I've talked to and how many promised they were going to help? I didn't give a shit if you were Republican or Democrat. If you would talk to us, we talk to you. Fast forward, J.D. Vance gets elected vice president. I've heard from none of them. We're still sitting here sick. People are still suffering. And where is he? At this point, you see the corruption, the lies from every one of our agencies. Unless the president says we're going to make this right for these people, it'll never be, made right.
In February, Jamie wrote a letter to President Trump, calling on him to sign a major disaster declaration and to deliver universal health care for anyone in East Palestine who needs it.
I'm a Trump supporter, but he needs to make this right. Something needs to be done. Yeah, something needs to be done. We went through Biden, who didn't do anything. This is your chance to come here and fix this.
When you get a minute, you're alone, what kind of sticks with you about all of this so far?
When I get a minute by myself, I'm not thinking about this. I'm not. I'm thinking about going golfing tomorrow. I'm thinking about fishing. I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about anything but this. Anything I can to not be a part of this anymore. There are times you need to step away for your own health, for your own sanity. You have to step away from it.
It's a lot of weight for anyone to carry. And for one person that I knew, it became too much.
I just don't trust their results. We're all ending up sick and they're telling us it's safe and everything's at a safe level.
I spoke with Courtney Miller after my last trip to East Palestine. We texted back and forth about how she was getting sick and wasn't getting the answers or the help that she needed. But we were never able to connect in person. That's because on August 21st, 2024, Courtney took her own life. We paid a visit to her home, which sits next to the tracks, along the banks of Sulphur Run, one of the most impacted creeks in town. I've spoken to Courtney's family. The wound is still too fresh for them to talk about on camera, but they gave me permission to quote their belief that Courtney's passing was 100% related to the derailment. For the people of East Palestine, What happened on February 3rd, 2023, was a wound. One they may be dealing with for the rest of their lives. For Norfolk Southern, it was just another Friday.
You're from this area. You know, when someone first said sacrifice zone. Well, what the hell's a sacrifice zone?
That's us.
Well, but we grew up here. When it's all around you, I don't think you even notice it until you step outside the box and you look from the outside looking in.
There's railways all around this country. If you ever notice, they're not in like the rich part of towns. They're in our neighborhoods. They're in the working class neighborhoods.
There's an unwritten law of big business in America. If you have enough money, you can get away with almost anything. And if you don't have the money, well,
that one there was when my heart was bad, and that's just a reminder of what I've been through, what I've gone through, what I've beaten.
What does justice for East Palestine really look like for you? And how far are we away from that as we're standing right here at Ground Zero now?
You know, I don't know. I kept thinking we were getting closer to justice and accountability, but every time something comes out, it's more lies, more betrayal from our government. I know that I'll never be able to move back here again, but you still just pray that one day you might get your home back.
Hi, thanks for watching our video. If you like this story and you want more stories like this, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to get more Perfect Union in your feed. And if you have stories that you want us to investigate, drop them in the comments below.
Streaming has reshaped music. Over 600 million people globally have streaming subscriptions, with most of them paying about $12 a month. And for musicians, it's never been easier to release work into the world.
You can finish something in your bedroom or studio or your tour bus and have it out to millions.
But ease of access doesn't mean things are becoming more fair. Streaming services have so much power and influence. With a whole new world of corporate middlemen, an already highly consolidated industry has only become even more consolidated. Music today is a winner-takes-all economy, and the biggest winners of all aren't even musicians.
It breaks my heart when I see bands thanking Spotify for putting them on a playlist. It's flattering, you get a buzz from it, but also they're robbing you. They're looting. They're a bunch of thieves.
Spotify CEO Daniel Ek has a net worth of almost $10 billion, while musicians make, on average, fractions of pennies per stream.
Labels, we got you, but do you got us?
It's never been easy to make a living as an artist, but musicians in the streaming era are up against a lot. Mysterious black box recommendation algorithms, unregulated paywall-like practices.
That's illegal on the radio. But there are a lot of allegations that this kind of thing happens in relation to Spotify.
Label pressure to pump out social media content in pursuit of viral hit singles, licensing agreements locked up by NDAs, greedy and out-of-touch tech execs who don't understand the labor of making music.
It's not really enjoyable to make music. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. You need to get really good at an instrument or really good at a piece of production software.
A marketplace where they need to compete with unlabeled AI slop and ghost music.
Why would you subject yourself to this garbled, generic shit?
And that's just on the recorded side of things. Corporate consolidation touches most of music's intersecting industries. Streaming, live music, publishing. Music is a public good that makes our lives better. But how is anyone supposed to make a living from it in 2025?
I feel like these days there are very few income streams from the music directly. There was a time when I would have said that I'm making most of my money from touring and playing shows, but even that more recently has felt a little less realistic.
I'm Liz Pelle, author of Mood Machine, The Rise of Spotify, and The Costs of the Perfect Playlist. Over the past decade, I've heard so many stories like this from independent artists about how hard it can be to make any kind of income in the streaming era. So it can be jarring to acknowledge that there's actually so much money in music. In 2024, the global recorded music business was a $29.6 billion industry, according to the IFPI, an international trade organization. Some estimates put the live music market at over $10 billion in 2024, too. And Daniel Ek isn't the only Spotify exec raking in cash. His co-founder, Martin Lawrenson, has become richer than anyone from streaming, with a net worth of $15 billion. Spotify's two co-presidents, Gustav Soderstrom and Alex Nostrom, earned over $14 million and $12 million respectively in 2023, landing them on Billboard's annual list of music's top moneymakers. The list also includes top execs from across the ultra-consolidated live and recorded music businesses. Topping it for 2 of the past 3 years was Universal Music Group's CEO Lucian Grange, whose net worth is estimated to be $250 million. Meanwhile, UK Musician Census estimates the average full-time musician's salary to be less than £30,000 a year. Another survey, the 2024 Greater Nashville Music Census, polled roughly 2,500 musicians and found that over 60% of them made very little or none of their income from their recordings. That's in part because of streaming. Spotify has offices all over the globe, including this one here in New York. They're the biggest music streaming service in the world, with 678 million users and 268 million subscribers across 180 markets. But when Ek and Lawrenson started Spotify in 2006, it wasn't about music. They knew they wanted to generate advertising revenue from some sort of free streaming media content. But what exactly would that content be?
The initial conversations were around building a video streaming service. Should it be product search, or should it be movies or audiobooks? And then we ended up with music.
Spotify was not the first ever streaming service. Rhapsody, all the music you want, just $10 a month. But they were the first to bring streaming to a mass audience. In the early years, the experience of using the service felt more like a search bar. A user would need to know what artist or album they were looking for. Over the years, as Spotify tried to grow its user base, it shifted to become a more curated service, with influential playlists and data-driven algorithmic feeds, aiming to attract not just enthusiasts, but passive listeners, or what the industry calls lean-back listeners. By the mid-2010s, they'd become one of the industry's most important revenue sources. The music business had spent years trying to recover from the financial impact of file sharing, so a narrative emerged. Spotify was saving the music business.
I did this not because I thought we could make a ton of money. I did this because I cared about the problem. I cared about music, and I cared about compensating artists fairly.
Saving the music business isn't the same as saving musicians, though. Spotify claims to be leveling the playing field by diminishing the power of gatekeepers like commercial radio stations and major record labels. But in the streaming era, streaming services have emerged as new types of gatekeepers. Making the modern streaming service a reality required the participation of the majors. Streaming services have to sign agreements with those labels in order to make their catalogs available.
When I started Spotify, I didn't actually know that I needed licenses from record labels. So I was like, well, we'll
It's
figure it out.
easy. You stream it.
In the early Spotify contracts, that meant the majors got perks like big cash advances, free advertising, and equity. When Spotify launched, it was 18% owned by the major labels. There's so much secrecy in streaming, but how rights holders get paid has become increasingly common knowledge. Streaming services pay rights holders 70% of their revenue. The payments are not made on a per-stream basis, but according to a complex revenue share model known as pro rata. Each rights holder is entitled to a percentage of the eligible royalty pool, according to their individual contract's determination of what the eligible royalty pool even is. It's what Spotify calls stream share. If a major label catalog accounts for 20% of total streams on the platform in a given royalty period, then they get 20% of the royalty pool. Once a rights holder gets their slice of the pie, they in turn pay out royalties according to their own contracts with their artists. It's a system that
I see Glow charging forward, sword raised high, and destiny barreling towards Alexander in the terminal area. I observe Olivia, once a crown queen now, hurling herself at Alexander with reckless abandon. I recognize that this is my moment to shine, to demonstrate my value to Blaze. With a fierce cry, I plunge into the fray, my fists flying in a whirlwind of aggression. My attacks are unpolished but enthusiastic, driven by a rampart's glance. I manage to sneak behind Alexander, landing a series of surprise blows that sent him staggering.
I see you have arrived safely in West Virginia. Is your payload secure?
You mean the so-called sentinel artifact? Yes. Speed 7 detected in the Suburban. Officer Main
patience, Sam. The team is busy schmoozing with the locals.
Counterattack, landing. And if you honk at me, cool, then I can tell you how I feel about you. I need y'all honking at me. The Valley ain't done nothing for me. I ain't none of these folks' friends. I'm here to get busy. I'm here to take my country back. You feel me? Right, exactly. Hop on and off. Right. They don't hop on and off the panel because they're scared to talk. But I'm not conversating with none of you. If you're not here for my conducive best interest, to see my business thrive and succeed and flourish, why would you think you're going to get on here? We have nothing to talk about, brother. That chat will remain open. Like I said, no, what y'all are doing is inexcusable, unforgivable. There they honking at me. There they honking at me. There's my response. Well, what are they honking at me for? I don't know you. You know what I mean? See, that's the thing. I'm not none of your friends. No. I'm not here for them. This is not your entertainment. I'm the Batman that gets busy. Y'all know how I get down. Y'all know what I do. Ain't nothing pretty about this. Feel me? Real talk. And I don't got to make it look cute for you on the camera either. I'll do whatever the hell I want out here. People got no business honking at me. You see, these folks keep approaching me. You see what I'm talking about? Yeah. Your false testament was already proven wrong, brother. You're wasting your time. Like I said, I got y'all all worked up in a frenzy. That's the actual reality. And you've seen that I can withstand anything, right? You've seen that I'm the immortal vampire. You've seen that I don't hide. You see exactly where I'm at. You see that I can withstand everything you've said at me through electronic means. That's it. I'm an immortal vampire, bro. You play around if you want. You understand? It ain't fake, bro. It's 100% real. Y'all got a vampire now you dealing with. A real one. I'm not playing. I'm an actual vampire, homie. So, like I said, folks want to put it to the test. Where? When? Who put it to the test? Who tested the vamp? Huh? Who playing with me? Who want to play with me? Right. Look. That's pathetic. Right. Ain't talking about nothing. That's what they do, right? And see, the whole time they've been trying to disguise it like it's cute, like, oh, we're trolling. You're not trolling. What you're doing is clear as day. I have it all documented. Why would I be filing a federal lawsuit if you were trolling? What? What are you talking about? So everything that you say, you prove it applies to you. Like, bro, you've been repeating yourself every day for the last 2 decades. I mean, anyone would lose it. Do you think any grown man who's in their right mind needs to listen to that? Bro, you have no right to come over here and repeat yourself. You have no right to sit there and even speak to me. What do you mean? I'm in my right mind, sir. I don't want to speak to y'all. Like, that's my civil rights, civil liberty. You see the point? No, I'm never out of character. I'm not mad for no reason. I'm not coming undone. I'm not acting out. I'm not whatever you said, folding or nothing like that. I don't have anything to hold together. You're the one who can't hold it together. Clear as day. What do you mean? See, that's the thing. You keep talking backwards. That stuff get irritating after a while, bro. I'm tired of hearing it, man. Like, no, you can't hold it together. You're the one with something to hold together because you got to make it look like, oh, it's something else. Yeah, you're totally failing. Whatever you doing, it ain't working, honey. That's why y'all say them statements like that narc up there, that corrupt narc. Right, because whatever you do ain't working. That's what folks told you. All y'all do is learn words and repeat them. These folks are super immature. And you think you're going to play with my business? You think it'll affect anything within my beautiful life? No, you're not. Ain't nothing going. I'm going to stand up to all of you, and I'm going to tell you right to your face what it is. Just like I told you. And I'll talk how I want, and I'll do what I want. These folks have no right to come over here. This is an official 5-star business. I built this myself. You understand? I don't go to y'all's businesses and act like this. Don't come to mine. See the point? Well, this is an official business, brother, and we make plenty of money. And that's what they're upset about, because they can't stop the money. Can't stop the money. Why do y'all act like because somebody's happy and in a good mood in themselves, oh, I'm everybody's friend? I don't know these folks out here. What are you talking for? Oh, nothing to do with none of you. Weird. Yeah, whatever. I'm not in the mood today. Like I said, I'm going to show y'all every day. That's the problem. The energies y'all bring online, right? Hey, I'm not my responsibility.
responsibility to act nice, bro. I'm really tough diesel for real. I can act that way for real with everybody. Like I said, I'm not a happy customer at all. You know what I mean? It is what it is. I'm not here for y'all no more. I'm not. I'm in a whole nother mode and realm, and I'm not getting out of it now. We're staying like this. Real talk. Oh, I'm going to be positive and happy, but by myself. You know what I mean? It's crazy how God keeps showing me how many people is on my side, how there's all this positivity and love, but yet I can't get to it. I can't seem to get to it. I can't escape these folks and get away from them. That's all I want. I want to get away from you all. That's all I need. I had everything set up the right way, bro. Everything I've worked for my entire life came down to this moment, and everything I worked for, I feel like is just messed up now. Like, real talk. Like, that's the thing. I'm a perfectionist, bro. I'm sitting here trying to do everything I can. Like, nah, bro. It's clear as day. Y'all keep cheating. Y'all doing weird stuff, bro. Won't let me sleep. Trying to take advantage. Saying crazy stuff. Like, bro, just talk to me as a human being. You have no business coming over here to my business. I don't owe you nothing. I'm Batman. What do you mean? This is my actual career. I'm the real Batman. What are you talking about? Yeah, you can't embrace reality. You don't have a choice. Reality has embraced you. You understand? Oh, looks like victory has defeated you. Right? See what I'm saying? Yeah, all this positivity, all these positive people, right? But yet, I can't enjoy one bit of it. I can't just be myself because of you folks. Hey, listen, I ask all these people to just leave me alone, bro. You know what I mean? That's all I want, bro. Not yet has anyone done their job. Not anyone has anyone helped ever. Not yet has anyone done anything. Don't tell me I'm doing something wrong. No, I'm not. I've done everything I can. I've asked. I gave you all the legal names. I did the right thing, bro. At some point, I got to stand up for myself, and that's what I'm doing. I have no choice. This is the same reason why I did 45 days in jail. Same exact reason. This is what these folks keep doing to me. They refuse to do their job, and then I have to take matters into my own hands because they're forcing me to in front of everyone. And then they want to sit here and pretend and say I'm wrong. How am I wrong when y'all refuse to do your job? You're saying no law exists to protect me. What are you talking about? Right. See, these folks is wrong. They ain't making no sense, and they know they caught red-handed. Yeah, all y'all exposed, bro. Yeah, no, don't play with me, bro. This is what I do. I know the law like the back of my hand. I know what's court admissible to. I know what's grounds for court. I know everything, bro. Trust me, I'm not the one, bro. I'm gonna get all y'all shut down.
Before we
That's what I'm
finish them
gonna do.
off,
Yeah,
let's
I'm gonna get
ask,
these corrupt
what made you
agencies
think you
and
could strip
corrupt
to me,
departments
huh?
completely exposed now and shut down. Now it's personal. It's been personal the whole time. Y'all just don't want to tell me what's going on. See, if you want to do this, if you want to troll, and you want to send people to do this to me, at least stand on it, brother. Y'all look crazy in front of everyone. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Imagine being this cowardly, man. It's just sad. All of it, there's no need for it. These people won't stop. Thank you. Thank you, JNYC. The Salute OG, keep telling these people what it is. These people need to understand. You get down. Show respect. Thank you. Exactly. Right. That's the thing. Like y'all talk about WAC 100. WAC 100 is fake. Y'all talk. I really do get down. I don't do no talking. That's all I do in my life. I'm worse than Mike Tyson in his prime. Mike Tyson talks crazy, then I can talk crazy. When folks get in the ring with Tyson, what happens? Just like Fox said. You're not making any sense. None of you at all. It's weird. I cannot do everything and think for everybody, bro. I don't need this kind of stress. None of it, bro. Like, no. I'm not giving up, but it's just all been made impossible. You know, these folks keep coming over here. For what purpose? You're not
I listened
accomplishing
to
anything.
Alexander's words,
How
my
you doing,
cheeks
brother?
flushing red with indignation.
It's just
I
odd.
scrambled to my feet,
And
pointing an
it'd be one
accusatory
thing if it
finger
was
at Alexander.
stolen or it was
Thou art a
okay.
serpent,
No, it's
poisoning
some of
the
these
ears of
cross
the
state
innocent
lines.
with thy
Solely
lies.
illegal. I've
Our
analyzed
king's
their
rule is
behavior.
just
I've
and
said what
fair.
it is, and I
His
gave
strength
them the
lies not in
names.
tyranny,
They're not
but in
doing
inspiring
anything because
devotion.
they're who set these people. That is super crazy. That I can't just feel at peace and be at peace where I live. You see my issue? That's crazy. I can't come on my business and run a show without them doing this stuff. Look at this. What they're doing. Look. It's right in front of all of you. That makes sense? What? People monitoring, surveilling? What is that? What is that? What's going on? Are y'all okay? Like, seriously, bro. Like, really? Like, yeah. And then then that's the crazy part. They want a rollerverse, but y'all need to check on these folks. Y'all should really be making sure these people are okay, because they not. They coming undone. Real talk. There goes the bottom of my shoe. My whole shoe is gone. Thanks a lot. See what I'm saying? This is exactly what I'm talking about. I can't have nothing. I can't do nothing with you folks. It's been one thing after the other. I've been good this entire time, bro. You know what I mean? The minute I get away from all these folks, I'm good. You know? Yeah, now this person over here, this individual, they're jealous because I own things and I pay cash for everything I have, so they're jealous because I'm rich and wealthy. Okay, so what? You can't repeat yourself no more. This is just all that. Wait till you I pay cash for everything I own. Like I said, you want to sit there and say whatever? Go ahead. I'm not trying to hear it. That's the thing. This person is every day.
Bonus points. Sam, is everything in place to deploy the Sentinel artifact?
Almost, Sergei. We are still a few steps short of our shared goal, the restoration of Agent Nexus.
Because I make my own, and I have people that donate to me, and that's the lifestyle that I want. I didn't want to hold on.
Come on, I'm downrange here. Yeah, knew I could count on you, Box.
Okay, this guy's not a big deal because you're not welcome to the house. So what are you trying to do?
Better be locked and loaded, or I'm coming back with a crowbar.
I don't need to do that, but people
Not what I expected, but it'll do some damage.
I'll say whatever I want. Nobody knows. I can guarantee it. Yep. So I think all of the organizations now, yes, I do. Yeah. Anything else? You want to help me anymore? Yeah, you can't talk like that. You got some respect. Like I said, that's how they do it.
I'm not gambling, I'm playing the odds. Hell yeah! I sure as shit know what to do with you.
They're doing the same thing every day. 24 hours a day. That's crazy. None of them. Not a one of them. Not a one of them work. I'm not trying to hear you nonsense. I know what you're trying to do about this man's business organization succeeding. So what you're telling me is you're upset because I'm winning. You're upset because I'm eating understand us? No, we're going to speak to y'all with love and compassion. I'm going to continue to be an example of God's testament and God's son, what I truly am. I mean, no, I just don't let folks play with me. That's all. You got to make sense. I'm really God's son. I have nothing but compassion and love for all of you. And now it's crap over. So like I said, what's up? Let me talk. What you're doing is so wrong. My health matters. My life matters. I do not need to be talked to like that. That's all I've asked. And I don't ask. That's just demanding. You know what I mean? Talk to me with some respect. Talk to me with some love in your heart. You okay over there? You alright? We love you. You okay? You good? See, I'm about love. I'm not about that vibration you want. See, that's the problem. Look, God just gave me a download too and said that. He said, speak positive over that affirmations, and it'll help that. See, when you speak, it's like spells. When you speak love and positivity, that's what you'll have. You know what I mean? Like, I have a right to feel how I feel, bro. You know what I mean? Like, this is ridiculous, man. What? I'm trying to merely run my business. That's all. Like, there's no way this could be going on this entire time. They can't do none of this. What are you talking about? See what I'm saying? All that stuff is documented, brother. So right there, you see what that is, right? People can't be serious, and then they want to try to design it like, oh, it's cute. All these people don't understand the way that reality is. Like I said, it is what it is, man. We're going to keep on winning. We're going to keep on showing love to all of you, right? And spreading love and positivity and being a real nation. You understand? Like I said, I'm going to be unbothered. I'm going to be at peace. I'm going to be happy. And I'm going to do me. Like I said, I mean, physically, you can see me withstand all of this. There is nobody who can withstand this. I've gone through this every day for the past 2 decades. And these folks try to make it like it's an everyday thing. I don't go through it every day. I don't deal with y'all. What do you mean? Y'all haven't done nothing for me. You've tried your hardest and you've accomplished nothing. So what do you mean? Huh? So they're all I want to do is be talked to with respect. I want to be treated with